the Jerusalem temple, built by Solomon about 950-ish BC, destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, rebuilt in the Persian period, desecrated by the Greeks, and remodeled by Herod the Great. Some paint, a few throw pillows. The temple symbolized the link, the connection, the meeting place between heaven and earth. At this temple, baby Jesus was presented to God as Simeon and Anna looked on, separated from Mary and his dad Joseph for 3 days. At this temple, Jesus, at age 12, was asking precocious questions and astonishing the teachers. His distraught parents, they ran up to the little darling and said, "Where have you been? We were worried sick." And Jesus said, "Where else would you find me but in my Father's house?" And Joseph said, after this stunt, "Where else will you find your bicycle but in your father's garage?" It was at this temple that Jesus spent much of his time speaking parables and scorching the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the religious leaders of the day. Scorching them for their hypocrisy and the heavy burdens that they had laid upon the people. The Passover, the most important festival for the Jewish people, fell on the 15th of Nisan, which is about the middle of April, which causes me to ponder, if Jesus drove a car, it wouldn't be a Nissan, it would be a Kia Soul. By law, every adult male Jew within 15 miles had to go to the temple. Now, there were 3 courts at the temple. The outer court was for the Gentiles. And then the next courtyard was for the women. And then the inner court was for Jewish men, where the sacrificial altar was located. Not like this altar, but the temple altar was a huge thing. It was like 30 feet square. And there were people who were walking on top of it, and it was filled with burning charcoal. And they would throw animal parts on it as the men prayed on their rugs, and it would smoke and it would sizzle. And they'd get out the Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. And they wouldn't do that. In the center of the temple complex was the Holy of Holies, a room where the high priest alone went once a year on Yom Kippur to meet with God behind the huge curtain. That curtain will come into play later in Holy Week. When pilgrims came to the temple, to the gate beautiful, and they would enter, they would have to pay a temple tax because all other types of currency were unclean, like the Roman coins bearing the image of the Caesars. Nice, friendly money changers helped them exchange their coins for Jewish shekels, kosher coins. Of course, it was for a fee. After paying the temple tax, then they paid the temple inspector to come and examine the animal that they brought for a sacrifice, most likely some unlucky dove or pigeon. If their animal didn't pass inspection, and they rarely did, it was okay because I just happen to have a couple of unblemished doves here, birds previously owned by a woman living in Florida, at a cheap, cheap price. And of course, there were vendors walking around selling hot dogs and beer and programs and temple t-shirts with a picture of the high priest on them, with giving the 2 thumbs up. And they sold little plastic statues with a big head of Moses on it, and you stuck it on your dashboard, and his face would bob up and down as you went down the road. Now, if you were a Roman chariot builder or a Persian textile merchant, a few extra shekels isn't going to matter. But most people, and I mean like 98% of them, were dirt poor. Literally dirt poor. That is what enraged Jesus this day. The common person who came to the Passover to meet with God couldn't afford it. They couldn't even get through the gate with all the taxes and inspection fees and sacrifice charges. They couldn't afford to meet with God. Wow. That's why Jesus said, "You've made my house of prayer into a den of robbers." This isn't the Yonkers after Christmas sale. This isn't the marketplace. This is God's place. So Jesus chose that moment to wield a whip of cords like Indiana Jones and tip over the tables in the temple and the corrupt system that it employed, because it was getting in the way of people coming to God. These poor pilgrims and spiritual seekers, they were being fleeced and scammed and squeezed, all in the name of religion. And again I ponder what Jesus was saying about the temple, hindering people's way to God. Was he speaking a little bit to the church? For example, the church isn't a saints' social club. It is a hospital for sinners. If there is anything in a church that is snobbish or exclusive, that lets certain people in and keeps certain people out, then Jesus is angry with us. If reaching into our pockets becomes more important than reaching out to the hungry, lost souls, then Jesus is angry with us. If a good liturgy becomes more important than a changed heart, if restoring the reredos is more important than restoring someone's life with God, if there's anything we pride ourselves on that we do above what Jesus did, then Jesus is angry with us. And we've probably all seen this happen. I know a guy whose parents divorced when he was 12. He was halfway through catechism and the class, and the minister asked the family to leave. So my friend left the church for 37 years. Thankfully, he's back, and he's a deacon at an Episcopal church in Marysville, Michigan. I've been to board meetings, and I've shared this before, where a lawyer and a doctor were standing across the table at each other, yelling over how much to spend on a Shrove Tuesday sausage. 3 cents, no, 5 cents. A link. A girl went to a neighborhood church for advice because she was in trouble at home, and her parents, she didn't feel they were listening to her. And like a Pharisee, all the minister could do was sit back and judge her because she was staying with her boyfriend. Who are we to inflict our morality and our agendas and our qualifications on others, categorizing and judging and labeling people? People are much more complicated and unpredictable. There's a cute story of a mom of a poor family who somehow got connected with some Methodist ladies, like, you know, the ladies over there. They got acquainted, and eventually these ladies invited her and her family to church. The mom said, "Oh, we don't have very nice clothes. We'd be embarrassed if we walked into the sanctuary of church." So the ladies group, they pulled all their funds together, and they bought the entire family a brand new set of clothes, every one of them, and they looked great. And the following Sunday, they weren't in church, nor did they come the next week. One of the Methodist ladies, she got on the phone. "Where have you been?" she asked. The poor woman replied, "Well, we looked so nice, we went to the Episcopal church." Now you know why I like that story. But people are complicated and unpredictable, and people are different. Everyone is unique, and people are hungry, and people are tired of churches fighting with each other, Tired of Christianity getting all caught up in politics and power plays. Tired of Christians separating. You have to separate science from religion. You have to separate your intellect from your faith. All people, but especially young people, I think, they long for a safe place to question important, relevant topics in their lives, like their hopes and their fears, or their families, or their faith, or sexuality, or who am I and what am I missing, and what can we do together to make this world a better place. They don't want simplistic pat answers or hipper music bands or espresso machines in the lobby. They don't want more information or to be entertained or sold something. They just want Jesus and how to see God in normal, everyday life. And they're not interested in pious institutions either, like the temple was. I once did a funeral with a minister. I'll call him Father Stone. Old Father Stone. He had been a priest at the same church for 158 years. I'm not kidding you. This guy was old. And we co-officiated a funeral service. And when it came time for communion, he asked me to refrain. Not a member of our church, he said as he shrugged his shoulders. When did Jesus start checking membership cards before feeding them? That's what I'd like to know. Where does it say in the Bible that somebody has to qualify or measure up before we can sit down at the table of Christ? In the Gospels, Jesus is always eating at wrong tables, which infuriated the religious leaders. And Jesus ate with the wrong kind of people all the time. He ate with sinners. He ate with Gentiles. He ate with women. He ate on the Sabbath. Occasionally, he used his salad fork for the entree. You could say the reason Jesus was crucified was because of the people he ate with. Jesus destroys this exclusivity attitude that unfortunately still lingers in some places. So let me end with an offer of invitation. If you are an agnostic, a loser, a failure, a boozer, Jesus loves you. If you are a Lady Gaga, a closet Peter Pan, a queen bee, or a divorcee, Jesus loves you. If you're a Democrat, a theocrat, a fat cat, or a dirty rat, Jesus loves you. And in your search for God, in the cluttered temple of your soul, in the quiet of the house, where everyone else is gone or asleep, and you have this acute, conscious moment where you sense that the universe, you're not alone in the universe. This is the you that Jesus is calling to and loving. The church welcomes you because here God's grace is the great equalizer. There is no one better and there's no one worse than the other. We are all precious in his sight. This is the word that Jesus is speaking to us this morning. And Christian churches, if it ain't so in your walls, then Jesus wants to have a conversation with you in the back of the barn. And I'll warn you, he has a whip of cords in his hand. Amen.